Good day, gentle viewers. In today's news, Disney Plus continues to gain new anime. RPG Maker can make Isekai video games easier, and Crunchyroll is in the news again, so we get to talk about that today. And without any further ado, I'm Tristan Gallant, and welcome to Glass Reflection. Let's jam. I did say earlier this week that I did not plan to go over each and every new anime that gets an announcement, barring either large sequels or anything that happens to be particularly noteworthy. Which brings us to today. Anime series Ashura, based on the light novel of the same name, is getting an anime adaptation by studio who knows, because they haven't told us. In fact, the amount of information we know about this adaptation is so small that I cannot even tell you when the series is set to be released. I don't even think we have a guarantee of what season it's supposed to come out in, or even a guarantee that we'll be seeing it in 2023. Like, I hope we will, but we still don't know, which leaves us with the curious bit of information that we do know. And that is that the series will be streamed on the internet via Disney's Plus platform. Now, we've talked about Disney's foray into anime streaming before, but they have not been one to make any large moves within the space. They have a handful of properties that exist on their service, but unlike some other competitors in anime streaming, they don't go with the big multiple announcements type thing every season. In fact, I think they only have like a handful of announcements in number every year so far since they've launched. So bringing on Ashura to me just seems like a continuation of their current status quo. They are a service that is lightly dipping its toe into the anime niche, but not going much further than that, either because they don't care or that they're just not willing to bring a big enough money gun to a knife fight against Sony and Netflix. Hell, I'd argue even that Netflix isn't doing as much as it could be, though they at least seem to be able to both snag large titles, even if they don't advertise them properly, and also financially back a number of other productions, even if, again, they don't advertise it properly. Can you see what I feel to be the problem with Netflix at the moment? Now, adding on to what we don't know about Ashura's streaming situation on Disney is what that means for other regions and services. We do know that it'll be exclusive to the platform, we just don't know what countries that will cover. Will Ashura be on Disney Plus in Japan only? Will it also stream on the US on Disney Plus? Will it stream in Canada? What about streaming in the UK? We don't know. Disney once again needs to sort out its priorities, but since we, again, don't even know when the show is supposed to air, I would imagine that they're not currently in all that much of a rush to figure any of that out. Perhaps they will get everything straightened away by the end of the year. One can hope. Now, before we continue, I did want to give a shout outs to supporters of this channel over on Patreon, because yes, this video is not sponsored, and the more support that we get over there, the less sponsors that Glass Reflection will need at any given time. So an immense thank you, especially to patrons like Omar Showman, Hector Montemayor, Wago221, Deluxe Flame, City Yamako, Rifen Bonaparte, Ross Emerson, and Mr. Jack. You late. I know you think you're being funny. And no, I am not going to speak your full name in full, nor am I going to have it posted on this screen, because we both know damn well that's not your name. And while I'm quite sure that YouTube wouldn't actually give a darn about me posting your name, your not name, anywhere, I don't take chances with my videos anymore. I've been burnt before. But thank you regardless, Mr. Jack, for your continued patronage. And also a very big thank you, of course, to everyone who has pledged over on Patreon so far, because we cannot continue this without your support, so however much you are able to help, I am eternally grateful. You know how there is a popular idea within the anime community that there are just too many damn isekai out there? Well, now there might be even more. RPG Maker, the video game development engine, is set to release a series of assets specifically around an isekai setting for gaming developers such as you watching right now to make an isekai-focused video game with. Now, RPG Maker is well known in many circles for being a low-cost, comparatively, game engine for popular fan games, and, you know, the occasional bigger splash. RPG Maker was the original birthplace of what became the anime Angels of Death, and it is also where the popular Corpse Party franchise comes from. RPG Maker, unlike its competitors like Game Maker, is better known for just the sheer amount of amazing horror-focused games that have been released over the years. If you want a horror-based fan game or just a really interesting amount of horror games, you would do well to pay attention to anything made in RPG Maker. Also, yeah, I guess 18 plus games, but we're not going to talk about those. And it seems that with this particular asset pack, they are attempting now to jump onto the Isekai bandwagon and give home-based developers the chance to make games in this type of setting. Not only are you allowed to use everything within the asset pack for your own games, but the license agreement allows you to modify the assets as you see fit. Now, there are a couple of restraints there. You can't change the assets into things that RPG Maker would consider to be offensive and so forth. Fairly standard, so you're probably not going to be using them directly for your 18 plus harem isekai game. But in all honesty, the restrictions are surprisingly lax compared to what I would have assumed. Downside, of course, is that you still need to pay for RPG Maker in the first place. And while yes, it is quite inexpensive compared to how game engines have been historically, I still don't honestly think that I would personally recommend it from a financial perspective, as some of its competitors like Game Maker are technically available for free, at least to start. Sure, if you are serious about making a game and actually selling it to people, releasing it on multiple platforms, then Game Maker does cost a subscription fee, but that all comes down to the type of person that you are and how you want to work. If you just want to play around and make your own game for fun, Game Maker. If you actually want to make one for real and sell it, then perhaps RPG Maker might be more your speed. Though I still might personally even then lean on Game Maker, since I've seen what it can do, and some of my favorite games of all time have been made using that engine. But Game Maker will not have this fancy Isekai asset pack, but I mean also, if you are so reliant on an asset pack for your game, I feel like you already just have problems. What I expect will happen with this is that the fan game community will be inundated with people trying to make their own little isekai games with a little quality control, and it'll be even harder to find well-produced works, you know, between asset flipping games and now even AI asset developed games. It's going to be tougher now to make your mark by yourself at home. But hey, don't let that discourage you, because if you do let it discourage you, well, it probably wouldn't have worked out for your game anyways. Crunchyroll is in the news again, though not necessarily for bad news, but also I wouldn't say something specifically good either. Just a bunch of meh news with a couple of little tidbits that I can't help but share. First is an article on scmp.com titled "How Streamer Crunchyroll Turned Japanese Anime Mainstream and the Future. More Fans in India, More Anime from China." Mostly, this is a fluff piece that covers the actual launch of some of the things that we've already covered here on the show a while back. Crunchyroll is bringing streaming into India, and in general, they're branching out worldwide, alongside, you know, the recent apparent success of the Anime Awards presentation from last week, which I no doubt will assume is the reason why this piece exists in the first place. Now, I call it a fluff piece because it holds nothing but praise for the company and does everything it can to showcase things in a positive light. Now, I'm not against that in principle, especially if it's deserving, but when it is written in such a way as to imply that the company can do no wrong, that's when I get super skeptical. From this particular article, though, the most interesting quote doesn't actually get discussed at all, because it was literally the last thing written without any additional context. "I think anime can come from anywhere," says Crunchyroll's current CMO. And there are a lot of quotes in this article essentially saying that Crunchyroll is trying to break out anime into the mainstream far more than what anime has been able to do on its own. That they are trying to combat this, I think it might be accurate to call it the boomer mentality of anime, that it's just children's cartoons from Asia that have no real actual merit. But this quote itself just seems really weird to me, because it's going to end up reigniting a long-standing debate on what is anime. And I honestly don't want to get into that argument anymore personally, because I feel like, at least in the circles that I frequent, this debate has been done to death. But for the Crunchyroll CMO to say it, well, either they are a corporate entity that doesn't know much about these types of debates. In fact, they don't know much about the community in which they are now a rather significant member, or they absolutely know what they're doing, and they are just seeking to challenge conceptions. I am inclined to believe the former, as I have been led to believe through my own experiences, that there are few people in the upper echelons of the company that give much thought or care about the anime community in general, and many large moves that Crunchyroll has made over the last number of years seems to be very corporate focused and less user and community focused. Their actual streaming product itself has desperately needed a proper user experience refresh, but they just don't seem all that incentivized to do anything about it. Another Crunchyroll article, this time from The Hollywood Reporter, almost seems to be like, I got the feeling that it was like a backdoor call for investors, talking at length about the size of the anime watching audience and also how much money the industry makes. Crunchyroll says its internal research shows that about 300 million people around the world watched Japanese anime in some form or another in 2022, which is double 2020's total viewership. Also spends time comparing the domestic and international revenue for anime coming out of Japan, and also, Crunchyroll boasting its somewhat stranglehold over popular anime titles that come out every season. We talked earlier this week about High Dive's agreement with MBS, but as noteworthy as that is, you really can't deny just how much of a reach and influence Crunchyroll has right now. Largely, both of these articles do not seem to be written for an audience of me, or people who think like me. Most of it seems to be trying to convince some other unknown entity that, no, actually anime is a really big deal right now and you should be paying attention, but more specifically, anime is a really big part of pop culture right now, and since we, Crunchyroll, have undisputably the largest market share, we, by extension, are also super important. Please praise us. Crunchyroll has been continuing their expansion worldwide, as they are very happy to explain to anyone who will listen. But at the end of the day, I can only keep coming back to what I feel like is Crunchyroll's massive flaw. And that is that they care more about the properties that they control rather than the streaming service that they run. Many parts of their website and apps are either clunky or outright broken, but since the money keeps flowing and even the income just keeps getting larger and larger with every passing year, why would they bother to fix it? No Crunchyroll executive is going to watch this first at all. But even if they did watch this video, my complaints don't matter because fixing their apps and their website won't necessarily make them more money, but it absolutely will cost them a lot of money to make any semblance of fixes. So yes, Crunchyroll, anime can potentially come from anywhere. But while saying that, I also dislike the implication that while it can come from anywhere, it could and should only be available with you. And you seem to have no intention of making that interaction pleasant for us. And that's it for our show today. So subscribe if you haven't, hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, and until next time, whenever that may be, ladies, gentlemen, and others, watch more anime and stay frosty.